Hi, this is Ben with Harvest Profit Support. Today I'm going to show you how to handle different types of crop shares and entity shares in your Harvest Profit account. I'm going to look over a couple different options and ways to enter them, how the software calculates them, and then maybe the pros and cons of different ways to enter them in the software. So to start off, we're going to be on the field and land cost page, and I want to show you where you can enter your crop shares. Now there's two ways to handle a 50-50 crop share, and we'll get into that later, but for this first example, we'll look at like a 1/3, 2/3. So in most 1/3, 2/3 cases, inputs either aren't shared or maybe just one input category is shared. So to add a crop share, we want to click on the drop down next to the field, and you can either select ones that are already created or you can create a new one. So first we need to name the agreement. Then we need to select a landlord, and if you don't have it created, you can type in a name and click enter, and it'll create that as you create the landlord agreement. And we're going to share more than just revenue. So we're going to say share revenue and specific expenses. So our revenue share, we want to set to 33% or a third. And we're just going to share, we'll say fertilizer in this category. We want to make sure this is also set to the correct percentage, and we can save this agreement. We'll then want to select that agreement for the field. And since this page now auto saves, you can see that it's saved automatically. And we can move on and start looking at the profit and loss for Field North. How Harvest Profit calculates crop shares, we don't remove any of the acres. We're showing you full field acres. This is a 500-acre field. What we are doing is removing a third of the revenue by removing 1/3 of the yield. And also, if we look at the per acre cost, the cost on fertilizer was approximately 300 and some change dollars before. And you can see it's down to 260 based on that revenue share. So we're removing the expenses, and then we're also removing the revenue. But we show the total acres, so that way when you're adding your applications for the full field acres, everything will calculate out correctly. Now we'll often get asked if we do reports for landlords, and we do not have a profit and loss report for a crop share landlord, but what we do offer is on the inputs page, an inputs totals report by landlord. So I can pull up that north field, and I believe the landlord was set to Nick. And we can see that all the fertilizer products or anything that I had entered under fertilizer is going to show up as a percentage of shares. And we can go look at applications for Field North, and you can see that I have as fertilizer, we have soy green. I have it called the fertilizer in here. That's why it's getting shared. Potash, AMS, MAP, all those different things are being shared to the customer. And you can even see that our miscellaneous cost of spreading is also getting shared. So again, we'll go back to that inputs page, look at our inputs totals report by field. And again, we can look at that report by landlord, and we could view this on a per acre level. The next option for crop shares that are 50-50 are going to be the same thing. We can set it up as a 50-50 share on this page, but we do have one more option, and a 50-50 will calculate the same way, where it's going to remove part of the rent, or excuse me, part of the revenue. Obviously you wouldn't have rent on a field if you had a share on it, so that's not accurate. We'll set this to 0. But we're going to look at a 50-50 share. So again, the one way we could do it is set up a new crop share 50-50, and we'd see the revenue split in half and all the expenses split in half. But if we're sharing the revenue at the same percentage that we're going to share seed, chemical, and fertilizer, we can actually set up what's called an entity share under the crop planner. So we're going to come into the crop planner page, set up an entity share, and we're going to add our first share. And we're going to call the two entities, we'll do Ben and Wyatt for the share, and they're set up as 50-50. if I save this share and now apply that share to that north field, we can go and see that this 250 acre field is going to look normal on our account. It's still going to show the full yield, the full acres, but that is because I have all entities selected. Now what this allows us to do is look at a breakdown of Ben's portion versus Wyatt's portion. And this is where we can see now we have half the acres. We'll still see the full yield, but we're seeing the full yield for 250 acres. So we're now physically splitting that field in half and the expenses in half. What this allows us to do then is actually print off a PDF report for our landlords. So that would be the advantage of using a entity share to record a 50-50 landlord share. The one thing we do have to be careful of is in this example, if I have any expenses in my inputs page that are overhead expenses, I'll see if I have any examples in here. You can see like this labor cost. I have 2 labor expenses that are set to all entities. And let's say right now, Profit Farms and Ben are the ones that are paying for the labor, but Wyatt is the landlord and we don't want him to be paying for the labor. I would have to split these costs up and make sure that they get evenly applied to the correct entities. Because right now, the landlord entity is going to be taking that portion of labor expenses on his account. So if I want to print off a entity report for Wyatt, we're going to see fuel, labor, repairs, payments and depreciation. So you would have to go through your inputs page and set up who the entities apply to for those certain categories. That way you can make sure that certain things aren't showing up on the landlord report. If you're not looking at necessarily a landlord share and you're just doing a 50-50 share with family members, that may be an advantage. That's really what that share page was designed for on the crop planner, was operator shares where you're farming maybe with your father or a brother or dad, whatever the situation would be, father, son. That way you can share all of your expenses and view your profit and loss on a full farm level or an individual entity level. If you have any questions on how to use any of these features, reach out to support. You can email us, support@harvestprofit.com, or you can always set up a call with our team by going to harvestprofit.com/call. Thanks.